I am 83 years old, and I wasted 25 years of my life. Not in prison, not in addiction, not in some dramatic catastrophe that makes for a good movie. I wasted them the way most people do, quietly, comfortably. One I'll start tomorrow at a time. It's early morning right now. Dawn is just barely pushing gray light through my window. I don't have curtains. Never got around to hanging them. Moved into this apartment and told myself I'd get to it next weekend. That was over 20 years ago. The walls are bare. The light comes in unfiltered, thin, the color of dishwater. And I'm sitting on the edge of my bed because that's where I sit every morning before the day begins, which is a generous way of describing what my days do now. They don't begin. They just resume. On the nightstand beside me, right here, is a wristwatch, old, cracked crystal across the face, a spiderweb fracture I could trace at my fingernail. The leather strap is faded, almost gray now, used to be brown. It's stained with decades of sweat and skin oil, and if I hold it close enough, which I do more often than I should, it smells like old leather and something underneath, something human, something that's been worn through years that mattered and years that didn't, and the watch can't tell the difference. It's still ticking right now. I can hear it on quiet mornings like this, that faint, insistent little click. Tick, tick, tick. But here's the thing about this watch, the thing that keeps me up some nights. It's 5 minutes slow. Has been for as long as I can remember. 5 minutes behind the wall clock across the room. 5 minutes behind the world. I never fix it. I'd glance at it, notice it was off, and think, I should get that adjusted. And then I'd forget. Or I wouldn't forget. I just wouldn't do it. It wasn't broken enough to demand action. It was just slightly wrong, just a little behind. And if you give me 8 minutes right now, I will explain how that one small neglect, that tiny forgivable gap between my watch and the real time, is the perfect metaphor for how I lost a quarter century of my life. I want to be clear about something. I was not a lazy man. That's not this story. I was not the kind of person who lay on a couch and let the world pass by. I had ideas. I had ambitions. I had plans sketched on napkins at diners and bar receipts with phone numbers of people I was going to call about projects I was going to start. I had energy. I had intelligence. I had everything a person needs to build a life, except the one thing that matters more than all of it. I didn't act. The lie I told myself was the most dangerous sentence in any language. There's still time. 3 words. Sounds reasonable. Sounds even smart. Like patience. Like strategy. But it's not patience. It's poison in a patient bottle. I stayed in a dead-end job for 11 years. 11 years in a cubicle that smelled like stale coffee and recycled air, doing work that a trained monkey in a spreadsheet could have handled. I knew by year 2 it was a dead end. I knew it in my body. I'd sit at that desk and feel my chest tighten every Sunday night, like a fist was closing around my lungs. But the paycheck came on time. The routine was predictable, and I told myself I'd start looking for something better next month. I stayed in a relationship for 3 years that I knew was wrong after 3 months. She was a good person, not the right person. I knew it. She probably knew it. But leaving meant disrupting the pattern, and the pattern was comfortable. And comfortable is the most addictive drug I've ever encountered, because it doesn't feel like a drug. It feels like stability. I postponed a health checkup for so long that by the time I finally went, the doctor looked at me the way you look at someone who left the stove on and went on vacation. "Why did you wait this long?" he asked. I didn't have an answer. I had excuses. I had a list of tomorrows that never became todays. I bought a gym membership 3 separate times, used it twice each time. I signed up for a night class in drafting, something I'd always loved, went to 2 sessions and stopped because it conflicted with a television show I can't even remember the name of now. I half read books. I half filled applications. I half lived. And none of it felt like waste while it was happening. That's the part nobody warns you about. No single day felt like I was throwing it away. Each compromise was small, painless, forgettable. Skipping the gym once, postponing the phone call once, saying next week once. It's nothing. It's a rounding error. But I was making that rounding error every single day for 25 years. And when you add up 25 years of rounding errors, you don't get a small mistake. You get my life. The sound that defined my younger years wasn't failure. It was the snooze button, over and over and over. Not just on the alarm clock, on everything. Now let me tell you about a Thursday evening that took the blindfold off. And I want to go slow here, because this is the part that matters most. And I need you to feel it, not just hear it. I was 58 years old, a Thursday in November. The kind of evening where it gets dark at 5 and the darkness feels personal, like it came early just for you. I was sitting in my apartment, this apartment, the same one I'm sitting in right now. I'd moved in when I was 36 and told myself it was temporary, a stepping stone, a place to stay while I figured out the next move. I was still here at 58, and the stepping stone had become the destination. The apartment smelled the way it always smelled in the evenings: microwave dinner, dust, the faint chemical scent of carpet that hasn't been deep cleaned in years. The television was on, murmuring something I wasn't watching, just noise to fill the room, so the silence didn't settle in too thick. The mail had come that afternoon, mostly junk, but there was a letter, a real letter, in an envelope with a return address I recognized. It was from my college roommate, David. We'd shared a dorm room for 2 years, stayed in touch sporadically after that, the way people do when life pulls them in different directions, and neither one pulls back hard enough. The letter was an announcement. David was retiring from a company I knew the name of because I had almost applied there. Almost. 22 years earlier, David had mentioned they were hiring. He'd given me the contact. I'd taken the business card, put it on my refrigerator with a magnet, and said I'd call on Monday. Monday became next Monday. Next Monday became after the holidays. After the holidays became a business card that turned yellow and curled at the edges and eventually got thrown away during a half-hearted kitchen cleaning. David had started that job the same year I said, maybe next month. I held that letter and read it twice. He'd spent 22 years building something, a career, a pension, a legacy at a company that valued him enough to throw him a retirement dinner. He'd started when I hesitated. He'd arrived because he left when I stayed. I set the letter down on the kitchen table, the same table that's still here, still cluttered with the same kind of nothing, and I looked at my wrist, at the watch, the cracked face, the faded strap, the second hand ticking its slow, stubborn tick, 5 minutes behind, as always. And something broke open inside me, not dramatically, quietly, the way a crack spreads through ice, slow and irreversible. That watch was never broken enough to fix. It still told time. It still ticked. It was just slightly off, just a little behind, just 5 minutes, barely noticeable, easy to compensate for, easy to ignore, just like me. Every job I didn't apply for, every conversation I didn't start, every risk I didn't take, every morning I hit snooze. I was never catastrophically behind. I was never completely stopped. I was just 5 minutes slow. Always almost on time. Always nearly ready. Always about to start. The gap between me and the life I should have had was never enormous. It was 5 minutes. It was one phone call. It was one Monday. And I let that tiny gap run for decades until it became a canyon I couldn't cross. I sat there that Thursday evening in my temporary apartment with my temporary furniture and my temporary life that had somehow become permanent. And I looked around. The boxes in the corner I'd never fully unpacked. The picture frames I'd never hung. The draft of a business plan in a drawer I hadn't opened since Clinton was president. Everything in that apartment was almost started, almost finished, almost lived in. The entire place was 5 minutes slow. The silence after I set down that letter was the loudest thing I've ever experienced. The television was still mumbling, but I couldn't hear it. The refrigerator hummed, the watch ticked, and I sat there understanding, with a kind of clarity that feels like a burn, that I had seen every warning sign, every single one. At 30, I knew I was drifting. At 35, I felt it in my chest. At 40, I could have named it. At 45, I was bargaining with it. And at 58, I was sitting in the proof of it. I saw the signs and I ignored them every time, because comfort whispered tomorrow, and I listened every single time. I didn't lose 25 years in a fire. I lost them in a fog, a warm, quiet, comfortable fog that felt like safety and was actually quicksand with a nice view. That was 25 years ago. I'm 83 now. The watch is still on my nightstand, still ticking, still 5 minutes slow. I never fixed it. At this point, it's not a watch anymore. It's a confession, a daily reminder sitting 3 inches from where I sleep. My apartment is the same one. The temporary furniture is just furniture now. Nobody calls it temporary anymore because there's nobody here to call it anything. I never married, not because I couldn't. I came close twice, but both times I told myself I wasn't ready yet, that I needed to get a few things in order first, that I'd be a better partner after the next change I was going to make, the next change I never made. I have friends, a few, acquaintances mostly, people who know what I order at the diner and what football team I follow, but couldn't tell you what keeps me up at night or what I regret. Surface people. Not because they're shallow, but because I never dove deep enough to give them the chance to meet me where it mattered. My mornings all look the same now. I wake up, I check the slow watch, I make coffee, instant, because I never invested in a real coffee maker. Another small delay that became permanent. The spoon against the ceramic mug is the first sound of my day. One spoon, one mug. The smell of instant coffee, which if you've never noticed, smells like compromise, like the ghost of what coffee is supposed to be. I sit in the silence and I listen to that watch tick from the nightstand. It doesn't mock me cruelly. That's not how it works. It mocks me accurately. It is exactly what I was. Not stopped, not broken, not dramatically failed. Just perpetually, quietly, permanently, 5 minutes behind everyone else. 5 minutes behind the man I should have been. 5 minutes behind the life that was right there, close enough to touch if I just reached forward instead of reaching for the snooze button. The void I live in isn't a catastrophe. It's an ordinary ache, a permanent almost that never arrived. A life lived entirely in the waiting room. Now I'm going to talk to you, and you need to hear this, because you're doing it right now. right now, while you're listening to me, there is something in your life that's 5 minutes slow, and you know exactly what it is. You've got a slow watch. Everybody does. It's that thing you've been meaning to fix. Start, leave, finish, confront, build, quit, or begin. The thing you keep saying you'll get to. The phone call you'll make Monday. The application you'll submit after the holidays. The conversation you'll have when the time is right. You won't. Not because you can't. Because comfortable is a coffin with a pillow in it. You'll lie there and it'll feel fine, right up until someone nails the lid shut and you realize you never got up. Do one thing today, not tomorrow. I have lived inside tomorrow for decades, and I can tell you exactly what's there. Nothing. Tomorrow is an empty room with a clock on the wall that's always 5 minutes ahead of you. Fix the watch or throw it away. But for the love of everything you have left, stop wearing it and pretending you don't notice it's slow. Stop glancing at it and thinking, I should fix that, and then forgetting on purpose. Stop treating 5 minutes like it doesn't matter. It matters. Multiply 5 minutes by 25 years, and you get my life. A life that was never terrible, just never on time. I'm strapping this watch back on my wrist now. I can feel the old leather settling into the grooves it carved into my skin years ago. It fits perfectly. It should. It's been riding along for every delayed decision, every postponed beginning, every comfortable evening I chose over a difficult morning. It knows my wrist better than any person knows my heart, and that is the saddest sentence I've ever said out loud. I can't get my 25 years back. They're gone. They didn't explode. They evaporated, quietly, while I was comfortable. But you still have yours. However many you've got left, they're still on the clock. The only question, the only one that matters, is whether you're going to spend them 5 minutes behind the way I did, always almost ready, always nearly there, always just about to start. Or are you going to set your clock right, stand up, walk out that door, and actually show up on time for your own life? The watch is ticking. It's still slow, but yours doesn't have to be. Fix it now, not Monday, not next month, now. Because tomorrow is where I lived, and I promise you, nothing is there.